Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching DZAIR News Live, and welcome to this English news edition coming up in the next 20 minutes. Minister of Maghreb Affairs Abdelkader Messahel received the Moroccan ambassador to Algeria over the overwhelming and unusual flow of Moroccans to Libya through Algeria. Plus, a fire broke out at a refugee camp in the industrial zone of Touggourt. And later on in our news program, the massive winter storms that clobbered the east coast of the USA is heading out to the Atlantic, but the problems it caused aren't over. Hello there, wherever you are, and thanks for joining us. First in our top stories, the Minister of Maghreb Affairs, African Union and the Arab League, Abdelkader Messahel, received today, Saturday, in Algiers, the Moroccan ambassador to Algiers, to bring to his attention the overwhelming and unusual flow of Moroccans to Libya through Algeria. In this regard, the minister underlined that the particularly sensitive current security context requires the utmost vigilance, adding that this context requires the strengthening of all cooperation between the countries of the sub-region, such as the one between Algeria and Tunisia in matters of notably the repatriation of their nationals. Messahel informed the ambassador of the decision of the Algerian authorities to allow for this time and exceptionally the transit of Moroccan nationals currently in Algiers holding documents of work or residence in Libya. The travellers who do not have documents supporting their trip to Libya will be subject to repatriation to their country of origin. Algeria will provide means of transport to ensure the return of Moroccan to these nationals who receive treatment proper to the hospitality values of the Algerian people. Moving on to another story now, a fire broke out at a refugee camp in the industrial zone of Touggourt. According to eyewitnesses, the blaze started inside a kitchen where refugees were having dinner. For their part, the National Protection Squad rushed to the spot and managed to put the fire out. No casualties were reported.
Thank God there were no casualties reported. A group of refugees were having a meal in the kitchen when they spotted the blaze. Once again, thankfully, the protection squad rushed to the site to put the fire out. According to their report, no one was harmed. The refugees were taken to their dormitories where they are rested.
The Minister of National Education, Noria Ben Ghabrid, stated from the southern province of Adrar that the suggestions concerning the exams, which were put forward by the sectors union, will be submitted to the government to be ratified. The minister revealed that the decision to amend the calendar of exams was due to the stability prevailed during the first semester of the academic year. Thanks to the sense of responsibility and the efforts undertaken by our social partners, stability prevailed over the first quarter of the academic year. Due to the stability that has been witnessed, we decided to mull over a decision aimed at amending the calendar of examinations. There are still few things left that have to be taken into consideration before submitting the final draft to the government. I encourage all the relevant authorities to help spread this environment inside our educational institutions. As part of the Algerian Business Forum FC's prominent strategy, countless representing offices across the national territory have been and many are yet to be appointed. Hence more, the attempt is set to help facilitate the administrative task for active economic operators in the country. Mustafa Azog.
As part of the framework of the Algerian Business Forum FCE, many representative offices across the national territory has been established and many yet are to be appointed, hence more. This endeavor is set to help facilitate the administrative task for active economic operators in the country. Being appointed as a representative came in the context of the FCE's ambitious strategy, which aims at establishing offices across the country in order to facilitate investment and bridge all kinds of communications between local authorities and potential investors. We, as businessmen, hail this promising initiative by the FCE. The latter will definitely improve investment in all sectors. FCE Forum aims through its ambitious strategies to bring together all businessmen from the four corners of the country to discuss ways on how to cooperate in various sectors. Algeria is currently witnessing a challenging period which is marked by the fluctuating oil prices on the international markets. Therefore, the authorities concerned must introduce new measures aimed at diversifying the national economy. Amid the current oil crisis ravaging the national economy, the FCE Forum is aiming at finding new ways to boost local production in order to cope with the crisis and revive the national economy.
In the same context, the president of the Algerian Business Forum, FCE Ali Haddad, has stated that a new era has begun for Algeria to emerge economically thanks to the government's willingness to treat equal the private and the public sector, an era which will be marked by new reforms and a break away from old habits and practices which made the country in stalemate for long.
The pre-draft constitution paves the way to the elimination of demonizing the private sector, according to the chairman of the Algerian Businessmen Forum FCE, who hailed the measures taken by the government and which the letter is going to include in the new constitution project, especially those related to the non-distinction between the private and the public sector.
Nous nous félicitons que cette loi fondamentale
We hail the fact that this fundamental law consecrates equality between the private sector and the public one. It's perhaps the first step in the process of de-demonizing the private sector, which for long has been wrongly accused of being the reason for Algeria's misfortune.
de la dédiabolisation du secteur privé.
The head of the Algerian Forum, Mr. Ali Haddad, argued with recent figures and numbers which prove that the private sector has been playing a significant role in reviving the national economy. In fact, the private sector employs more than two-thirds of the Algerian workers and contributes by a rate of 80% in the country's GDP outside hydrocarbon.
Le secteur privé est le principal pourvoyeur d'emplois.
The private sector is the main employer according to studies on employment by the National Office of Statistics. It has a rate of 58.9% of total employment rate in Algeria. 2 out of 3 job opportunities are private. The private sector contributes with more than 80% of national GDP outside of hydrocarbons. In all fields, the private sector is undeniable. More than 90% of cancer patients were treated in private clinics. I can let you imagine if we had more favorable business climate. The fate of the private sector in Algeria is bound with drastic change. Thus, the Algerian Business Forum is ready to fight all kinds of stagnation and stalemates policies.
La résistance au changement est un phénomène.
The resistance to change is a normal phenomenon because change shakes the ground of certain habits and other practices rooted in our society. Some resist the change because it touches their personal interest and advantages. For our part, we privilege always the general interest. There's no change taking place if we're not going to be mobilized.
Personnel et à leurs avantages. Pour notre part,
the chairman of the Algerian FCE believes strongly in the need of Algeria to adopt new economic mechanisms which would put an end to all old practices and revive the national economy.
Forum des chefs d'entreprise, nous estimons qu'il faut
The Algerian Businessmen Forum insists on the adoption of truth. We're against of infantilization of the society and people, and we say this with strength. Algeria must adopt new forms of growth in rupture with what has existed so far. We can no longer exploit in the same way our natural resources. A new era has started, and it's with you that we can concretize it. That of an emerging Algeria. Indeed, the Algerian Business Forum seems to be ready to wage a fight through a busy schedule for the year 2016, which in its turn is going to be full of hard work, sacrifices, bold decisions and reforms.
Due to the current economic crisis which Algeria is living, and especially with the decreasing funding options for the government, the Ministry of Religious Affairs and Endowments decided to contribute with endowment and alms funds to support some strategic economic and social activities as part of the ministry's efforts to eradicate poverty in the country.
In light of all crises and the shrinking of all the funding options of the government, endowment and alms funds may constitute a significant source of funding for some strategic economic and social activities. This has become very important and necessary so as weaker social classes are sustained and protected. As for the zakat funds, they are given completely to the poor and the needy, and we noticed that the rate of zakat funding is raising when we decided that it should go directly to the poor and the needy. We will create a specialized committee for zakat. We will create a special zakat foundation under the supervision of the government to make sure that it reaches the right people. Islamic loans is another Islamic funding mechanism which will be reviewed as well to adapt it with the current economic situation of Algeria, and the aim is to direct it toward funding traditional handicraft and benefit housewives, retired people and jobless youth. We prefer for zakat funding to remain in the mosque, and for the Islamic loan we think that it is overwhelming the zakat funds, and thus we decided to shift it to that of endowments. And we started effectively with handicrafts, and we will look for housewives, retired people and youth with a craft. Then we give them loans through which they can make money, and then they give it back. Raising the rate of zakat and endowment funds can only be done through raising awareness among the Algerian society, as well as integrating public and private institutions and businessmen to interact with such funds to help in eradicating poverty in the Algerian society.
The culture of organ donation is a big issue in Algeria and needs to be addressed by all the social classes to engage and educate all families on the noble duty of saving a life. The International Center of Fighting Cancer, Centre Pierre et Marie Curie, has seen such an exemplary successful liver transplant for a patient whose sister unhesitantly agreed to help giving part of her liver to save her brother.
With a long, tiresome and bitter fight with hepatitis, life came back to Farhat after he had had a successful liver transplant. In 2004, I knew I was sick, so I came here to the service to follow with Dr. DZAIR, and we tried all sorts of medications, but nothing worked. So she told me about liver transplant. When I informed my sister I was sick, the whole family took care of me, and she volunteered even to give me a part of her liver. They transplanted that part after they completely removed mine. Now I'm living with that part, and with time it'll grow to become a full liver. Like the football player Abidal, who had a similar surgery, and now he's playing most normally. Liver transplant surgery is based mainly on finding a matching volunteer donor, and luckily for Farhat, he found one. It was his own old sister who wanted to give him part of her liver to give hope once more to her brother. I just decided to volunteer and give him part of my liver. Most important thing for me was to eradicate this problem of disease in our family. Now I'm fine. I got my health back just like I was before. Hepatitis is a disease which had claimed many lives, but now this surgery can easily spare many lives in medical facilities and hospitals such as Pierre and Marie Curie, yet it all depends on donation culture.
The provisions
at first times, we decided to do 1 or 2 provisions a month in regular way. There is an emotional element which is more important. Can you imagine what it is that someone gives half of his liver to someone? This teaches us a lot about humility as human beings. The waiting list of liver transplant patients is very long and is far to be met at any time soon. Yet these kinds of surgeries are completely dependent on donations. Thus, all Algerian people should be engaged and encouraged to adopt this noble culture of donations, for it is many patients' only hope for life again.
Moving on to world developments, 8 museum employees will be charged with negligence after a botched attachment of the beard of King Tutankhamun's mask. King Tut's burial mask is displayed at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo and is considered a valuable artifact from ancient history. There have been different accounts of how the mask's blue and gold-braided beard broke off since its damage came to light in 2014. To the USA, the massive winter storm that's clobbered the east coast of the USA is heading out to the Atlantic, but the problems it caused aren't over. Crews are scrambling to clear the roads before the work week starts. But while the sun and rising temperatures expected in some areas Sunday may help clean up efforts, meteorologists are worried about ice, which could make roads more hazardous. And on the New Jersey coast, flooding is a major concern as residents keep a wary eye on rising waters. The storm has brought more than 3 feet of snow to some areas, killed 14 people, grounded thousands of flights, and shut down travel in the nation's largest city. But snowfall is most of the major cities affected will likely finish early Sunday morning, except for some isolated flurries. And finally, homelessness is one of the tragedies that one can face unexpectedly. Many people are sleeping rough, while others are also finding it difficult to secure housing due to social problems they face. In the capital, Algiers, our reporter Siham Sado spotted on the ground how an active volunteer group supports these homeless individuals. Let's follow.
It's 2:00 a.m. in winter season. It's cold and gloomy. The streets are empty and people are sleeping tightly under their blankets, while the homeless are roughly seeking shelter to dwell to food, to quench their hunger, and clothes to warm themselves up. In the capital, Algiers, about 615 people were identified as being chronically homeless. To this effect, we decided to shed light on the story of volunteer active group called ABSHER, who scheduled a humanitarian operation late at night, looking for the homeless in every corner of the capital. Our camera spotted their humanitarian actions on the ground.
Speaking about our association, we've been doing the homelessness assistance for 4 years, and unlike the previous year, this year is working pretty good for us. We've got a lot of donations coming from different parts of Algiers, blankets, clothes. Not to mention the fact that we find a hard time trying to sort it out.
It all started 4 years ago. As you can see, we're a group of students. We organize all our program in a flat that our friend left us, and all of our contacts are set on our Facebook page. Several volunteers do contact us and come to our current headquarters to bring donations such as food, clothes, and many other things. And our group goes out to look for the homeless in the area and try to figure out ways to help them and provide them with necessary supplies.
Clothes also.
In fact, this group is composed of young, prominent students from business, translation and statistics schools, and who are determined to meet a very busy charity schedule 2016.
It all started 4 years ago. As you can see, we're a group of students. We organize all our program in a flat that our friend left us, and all of our contacts are set on our Facebook page. Several volunteers do contact us and come to our current headquarters to bring donations such as food, clothes, and many other things. And our group goes out to look for the homeless in the area and try to figure out ways to help them and provide them with necessary supplies.
homeless has become a serious national epidemic which is now affecting the Algerian society as a whole. Many families become homeless due to job layoffs and an exhausted income and are unable to afford adequate housing. However, thanks to volunteer communities such as Abshar Group, that these homeless can at least see some light of hope.
Before we wrap up, these are our main top stories. Minister of Maghreb Affairs Abdelkader Messahel received the Moroccan ambassador to Algeria over the overwhelming and unusual flow of Moroccans to Libya through Algeria. A fire broke out at a refugee camp in the industrial zone of Touggourt. The massive winter storms that clobbered the east coast of the USA is heading out to the Atlantic, but the problems it caused aren't over. That's all from me, Nadia Kasmi, and the rest of the team. For more news, visit our website. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.